them, which is called a monopoly, which means guess what they're going to do? When they've got the only seeds that'll grow, you raise the price. Everybody gets rich. Love of money, root of all evil. Part of the plan is chemtrails. Go to chemtrails911.com. Chemtrails stands for chemical trails. The goal is to spray the earth with aluminum oxide, I believe, is the primary thing. This makes the soil such that basically the genetically modified foods are the best ones to grow in it. Spending bazillions of dollars spraying the atmosphere with things that are going to, of course, here's the cover story is, we're trying to reflect back some of the sunlight so that we don't have global warming. The reality is this stuff they're spraying out is going to electrify the soil. There's a good article in New American, which is the John Birch Society's magazine. I'm not a member of the John Birch Society, nor am I against them. I'm very much for them, but I'm not a member of anything except, you know, the Lord's kingdom in my family. But they have engineered extinction. The goal is to destroy America's resources and the world's resources. The United Nations has a philosophy, very simple. Food is power. We use it to control behavior. We do not apologize. They want to reduce the population by whatever means possible. Let's take about a 5-minute break and come back and talk about more of the plans for the New World Order and what you can do about it after a few minutes. All right, let's go back to the population control. The United Nations folks said food is power. We use it to control behavior. We do not apologize. Boy, they can sure do that too, you know. What if a famine hits a country? They want everybody to move into the city where they can control them a little better. Well, let's just have food distribution because of the famine. But, of course, we're going to do it where we want you to come. You come to us to get the food. Len Horowitz has a great video out. I believe it's in book form also, called Emerging Viruses. If you're in the military or you're considering having your children vaccinated or getting vaccinated yourself for anything, flu vaccine included, you better read about what's really happening with vaccines. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to give any medical advice. But I'm going to tell you, I would really think twice about that. Tetrahedron.org is a good website that deals with this topic, as does BillSardi.com. And actually, I think Bill Sardi's website is actually Knowledge of Health. But if you go to BillSardi.com, it'll come up, you know, it'll trip over to his website automatically. There's another one called VacLib.org, Vaccination Liberation. Let's stop vaccinating. That book, these two books here, Vaccines, The Deadly Deception, and The Power of Healing, The Power of God, are available in the bookstore right next door. There were 22,000 reports of hospitalizations and injuries, including 300 deaths, following hepatitis B vaccines. I lost the date in my notes. I think it was since '96, but I may be incorrect on that. Mary Tocco, T-O-C-C-O, lives in Michigan and travels and speaks on the dangers of vaccinations. A lot of people are getting, like, autism. We had a girl here at the park yesterday who was 11 years old and autistic. That's horrible. What that does to kids, you know, just like you're raising a baby for the rest of their life in many cases. Here's Mary Tocco's phone number if you want to call her, or marytocco.com. Dr. Kalakarinos said, I found the whole vaccine business was indeed a gigantic hoax. Most doctors are convinced that they are useful. But if you look at the proper statistics and study the instances of these diseases, you will realize this is not so. You cannot immunize sick children, malnourished children, and expect to get away with it. You'll kill far more children than would have died from natural infection. By the way, Jenner is famous for developing the vaccine, right? Maybe you see the picture of him giving the vaccine to the little boy. The little boy died a couple years later of tuberculosis. Is there something in the vaccine that might have killed him? I don't know. I suspect so. Dr. Mendelsohn said, there's a growing suspicion that immunization against relatively harmless childhood diseases may be responsible for dramatic increase in autoimmune diseases since mass inoculations were introduced. These are fearful diseases such as cancer, leukemia, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, etc. There are all kinds of diseases people are getting. Many folks, including myself, are convinced they're coming largely because of the vaccinations. You're putting poisons into your body. I taught biology. I understand germ theory and how it's supposed to work, okay? I still remain unconvinced. I'm willing to discuss it with anybody. But I defy you to find anything in Scripture that would give the indication that you should put something poisonous into your body to counteract a poison. The theory is, we'll give you a little dose of poison, you build up an immunity, you get the white blood cell count. I know all that. I still remain unconvinced, all right? I think it's a dangerous philosophy to live by. And I think you should encourage people to not get vaccinated, to at least study the truth before they make a decision like that. This lady wrote me a letter and said, Dr. Hovind, we have a son that has been damaged by the MMR vaccine, mumps, measles, rubella. He lost his ability to walk, talk, and feed himself. The government has a fund that compensates for injuries due to vaccines. Our 8-year-old child, would you like to have an 8-year-old that can't walk or talk or feed himself? You know how many parents are in that situation right now? Like tens of thousands of them. Now, God can use all that for His glory. And I know when you have a handicapped child, it brings out the best in the parents. And Dale Evans and Roy Rogers wrote the book, Angels Unaware, about the handicapped child that they had for a while and what good it did for their life. And wonderful things can be done. God can get glory out of anything. But to unnecessarily destroy a child's life, which is what's happening, is cruel and criminal. Okay? I don't have the documentation on this story. I'm going to tell you this story, but I'm going to tell you right now I can't document. I don't remember where I read it. I read a lot, and I study a lot, and I didn't write it down. One of those things like, oh, that's a great idea, and I missed it. But there was a group of doctors meeting just in the last few years, if I recall the details, and they were getting up testifying about the dangers of vaccinations. Don't vaccinate your kids. This is dangerous. Kids are dying. What are we doing? Why are we vaccinating kids? After these doctors talked about all the horrible things happening with vaccinations, several, I think 2 or 3 doctors got up in a row who were pediatricians. They said before this group of doctors that were considering, voting on writing a recommendation saying, look, we recommend you not vaccinate your kids. That's what they were considering doing. These pediatricians got up and said 80% of our business, of our income, is from vaccines. If you make this recommendation, you're going to put every pediatrician out of business. So guess what? They didn't vote to recommend against vaccines. Because, nobody eats their own. The doctor's got to take care of it. After all, Mercedes are expensive, It takes a lot of income to pay for one of them things every month. So, it goes right back to 1 Timothy. The love of money is the root of what? All evil. So if any medical doctors are watching this tape and you're recommending this, you better study what you're doing. People are trusting you for advice. And if you're recommending kids get vaccinated and then they get an autoimmune disease, and many do, and I'm sure you're going to have a cover story of why it happened, oh, it must have got it somewhere else. It wasn't me. Then there's sure going to be a cover story, okay? They always have that, okay? But for the next 70 years, as that mother has to feed and change diapers on her baby, you think about it. You got your $40 or $80 or whatever it was, and they're paying for it for the rest of their life. Think about that long and hard. This goes on to the story here. This lady writes, she says, this business of shots for tots is aimed at seeing to it that children under 2 are fully vaccinated by their doctor's offices. You would not believe what's going on in this area. After studying this for the last 4 years, Satan is seeing to it that well-meaning parents are destroying their baby's immune system by putting over 22 viruses into their system before they are 2. 909shot.com has story after story after story of people destroyed by vaccines. Now, Satan's goal is to reduce the population of the earth. So guess who would be behind something like this? God's plan is to fill the earth. God would not be behind a situation